Hello and welcome to the Kayden Saturday's Best Country Mix. And joining us, we have a very special guest, Mr. Gary Pudles. He is the CEO of AnswerNet, and he's going to chat with us a little bit today about his amazing company. I've been working very closely and partnered with AnswerNet for the past couple of years now. It's been 3 or 4 years, and I have to say it's been an incredible experience. So, Gary, first and foremost, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kayden, for inviting me on. It's an honor.
You're very welcome. So let's get started. I gotta ask you, what made you think just one day, did you just have this thought one day, I'm gonna create an answering service? I want to know what made you want to do that because I know you have a musical background. What made you want to get into the answering service business?
So I can tell you a long story, but the short story is I got fired. So I got fired from a job, but I had been looking for a company to run. So I had written down all the things that I liked in a business and all the things that I didn't. And I went on the internet to find a business to buy. And the answering service and the call center business really had all of the things that I wanted, which were business to business, people management, communications, and I wasn't dealing with people at the worst parts of their life, and I got to manage people, and that's what really attracted me to the answering service business in the first place.
Well, that's incredible. And you've built such an amazing company. I believe you're in a few different countries. I know specifically United States and Canada, but are you in other countries as well for your business?
Well, it's really interesting with technology the way it is. We're actually in a lot of countries. Most of our work is in Canada and the US, but we are able now to bring people in from anywhere in the world because we keep our technology in Amazon in the cloud, and we can spin up a team anywhere in the world in any language. What we call this is the business of any communication path connected to any business process software, anytime, anywhere, on any device, in any language.
That is incredible. Now, your first client was as a lawyer for AnswerNet. What was it like working with a lawyer to being your first client?
Well, no, no, no. I was a lawyer first. My first client I bought a company with clients, so I didn't
Okay.
start it from scratch. When I got fired, I had a job, I had a wife and two kids and a
Mm-hmm.
mortgage. So I wasn't in a place where I was going to start a business from scratch. And the reality is, for those of your listeners who are wondering how to begin an entrepreneurial journey with a little less risk, I there are hundreds of thousands of businesses for sale right now because the baby boomers are all in their 60s, and many of them have great businesses with recurring revenue. So what I did was exactly that. I turned my savings into cash flow. But I started as a lawyer in private practice doing litigation, and
Okay.
then I had a client make me an offer I couldn't refuse, and that's when I left private practice and I went to run Muzak, which is a they call it functional music and sound company.
That is amazing. Now, one question that I have for you as well is how did you get to a point where you had maybe just a few employees to over 100 employees, I believe you have now? What is it like for someone that wants to be able to get more employees within an entrepreneurial business?
That's really interesting because I never dreamed I would be as big as we are now. So we've done a lot of acquisitions, and candidly, our biggest client, which is in the energy space, our biggest client started as an $880 a month answering service account and grew. So the idea is, number one, you treat your people right, you treat your customers right, and your employees right, and clients will stay and grow with you. You're a great example of that. You've grown your empire for the last few years, and you were a much smaller business. You didn't have the
Yes.
the resources and the contacts that you have now. Watching your business grow has been amazing. So for me, it's been a lot of acquisitions. I've done over 100 acquisitions over the years, and it's also been having great clients. So we have over 7,000 clients. So we're really in a position where we've built a very specifically flat platform that we're able to handle relationships and communications for all kinds of businesses.
Gary, I really like what you said there because, when you treat your people right and your customers like all of your incredible employees, like specifically, you guys have multiple offices, and my account is through Allentown, and they are just absolutely incredible. Samantha Crossley and Amanda, shout out to you guys, and all of the amazing people, Tammy and Emily and Christine West, all of the ladies and all of the guys that you have over in these offices. They do such amazing work, and I think if you keep them happy, then everybody will be happy.
And Allentown was the first office I bought. So that was the first business that I owned, which is about an hour from my house in Philadelphia. So Allentown was the first. And you're right, it's all about the people. So I'm really lucky. I get to work with some of the most incredible people on the planet. And, you know, it's still, I'll never forget during Y2K, which was my second year in business, I was calling my offices on New Year's thinking how lucky I am that people would work on New Year's for me. The concept just never really, it didn't really fit that, how lucky I really am. And that's been, a very, being authentic and being appreciative is truly an important thing for any business owner. Whether you have 5 employees or 1,000, it's just being that way.
So, besides you having the answering service, can you share a little bit of other services that AnswerNet and your other services provide?
So we have a nonprofit donor services business. We have a third party verification. We're very large in the con, consumer consumer electric business. So we have a lot of customer care in the consumer electronics. We also have a big business in customer care generally. So we're essentially anything you have with either a phone, a chat, an email, we're able to help you with people and technology.
And you guys are also 24/7 as well. So if you need someone on Christmas, like you just mentioned, New Year's, there's always somebody there willing to work. And it's just absolutely incredible because not many people have that kind of power that you guys have to be able to run for somebody's business.
And sort of to your point, with the internet and the world the way it is today, you
Hmm.
know, just like streaming services, right, for the music
Yep.
industry, you
Hmm.
people are consuming things 24/7, and we're there to take a business and in an affordable way and make them available to people when they want to be when they want to communicate with them. And that's really an important thing as new technologies come about, is the ability to stay connected to all the different channels of communication all the time.
Definitely. So, since we're on the topic of music, we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about your music experience. I know you're a drummer. Tell us more about your music story and how you got involved within the music industry.
Oh, it's really funny. I was a lawyer, and actually during law school, I took a job working for a Muzak franchise. And for those of you who don't know what Muzak is, Muzak back in the day was the only way that you could deliver licensed music to a business. So you would go into McDonald's, you would go into
Mhm.
a retail store, you go into Macy's, you go into Nordstrom's, you would go in, and either Muzak or a company called AEI, which we represented both of those companies at the time, those companies would deliver licensed music. And back in the day when I first started, it was by private radio. So today you have the HD channels. Well, we were using what are called subcarrier, which are now where the HD channels live, and we would deliver music, and you had to have a special tuner. Then we moved to satellite, and we were able to deliver live, real, not live music, but original artist music into businesses. So we had a country music station, we had a top 40, we had a adult contemporary, we had the background music. So we had these different kinds of music and a hits radio type of music, and we would deliver these. And in the monthly fee the business paid, they would also be paying the artists the royalties that they get. And it really wasn't until the internet came up in the mid 2000s that there was more challenges to this. What happened was, many people don't know, is Comcast. So cable radio came out before streaming, and the cable radio services started delivering music into business premises, and they were competing because most people don't know Comcast, the big cable company, actually got its start in music and not in cable. That's where they learned about recurring revenue, and so delivering licensed music, because as you know, somebody who is such an advocate for the artist like you, Kayden, the making sure that the artists are paid for their work and their effort is something that I've always been very passionate about. And that now it's done through streaming, but ASCAP and BMI and CSAC, those organizations make sure that the artists that we all love get paid.
Yeah. And thank God for people like BMI and ASCAP and CSEC because they're like great organizations. And there's even some internationally for people that are like international artists as well.
Correct. Correct. And that was and it was interesting because that's how I learned about communication technologies. We
Mhm.
would deliver music ultimately by satellite, and when we would deliver the music by satellite, we also learned how to deliver data by satellite. And that's why I often say that in call center world, I'm like the slum dog of call centers
Mhm.
because I had all of these different experiences that allowed me the ability to ultimately own my own business. And when we talked about music and we're talking about music, so I played in high school, we all dream of great things. And then I didn't play for 35 years. For 35 years, I had my family and I started my business, and ultimately, I was with a friend of mine playing golf, and he said, "Oh, a bunch of us are going to play in my friend's garage. Why don't you come and play drums?" And that was about a little over almost 11 years ago. And I said, sure. It wasn't like we were playing a stadium. And ultimately, what we were able to do is I played with them. And after playing with them, and I hadn't played in a long time, they said, "Oh, why don't you play a gig with us?" And I laughed. I said, "There's no way I'm playing the gig." But I didn't say it that way. I said, "Oh, I'm going away for the holiday weekend." So
Yeah.
then, when my company had a big change, I said, I want to prove to my employees that I still am going to drive myself forward for them. So, with the next year after this big change in my business, we I was at our annual meeting, and I put together a band, and I was so scared about playing in front of people after 35 years. We did a 2-hour set because I was afraid that if we took a break, people would leave. Even though I was feeding them drinks and food for free, I was afraid they were going to leave. That's how nervous I was. And now music has become, not only do I play in a couple of bands, Fun Size and Bucket Band Philly here in the Philly area, but what I've been able to do is incorporate my music into my business. So we were at a conference in Texas, and a couple of us put together a band. My company threw a party, and we were able to be the entertainment. So I got to mirror, bring, when you can bring your music and business life together, it's amazing, because music is everything. Music is soul enhancing.
Gary, you're so right. And that's awesome that you were able to incorporate your annual meetings with music. Now, do you play like every year at your annual meetings for your employees, or do you like hire people, or how do you do that?
No, so we don't play. Usually have a musical thing,
Okay.
karaoke, piano bar. But no, my bands play. So I have a deal with my wife. It's funny. I listen to a lot of your shows, and you talk about musicians and
Hmm.
professionals. There's a whole world of us out there, cover band musicians, and like I have a deal with my wife that I can only play once a month.
Mm.
because she doesn't want me in the bars every week. She wants me to herself too. So there's a whole
Yes.
world of extremely talented musicians here in the Philadelphia area, for example. I get to see, and I have this whole community of musicians, and they're not gonna. None of us are playing stadiums. None of us are going on tour. But what we're doing is we're going into bars and we're entertaining people in groups of 50, 100, 200, and and the joy that we get. And again, I was going to start writing music, but I realized that nobody cares about CEO angst. Oh, I couldn't make payroll this week. Nobody cares about that, right?
Right.
You know, so playing great music, playing other people's music, playing in bars, and there's all different kinds of levels, right? There are those people who dreamed of being a big success in music and they weren't a big success in music. So they're mad. They're angry at the world. Then there are people like me. The first time I got paid by a check, I started laughing, and the manager of the bar said, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Because I probably would have done it for free if you had asked." And 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 that's really what
Yes.
people don't understand that there's the big world of music. I got to play. I know you're a country show. One of the greatest moments of my life was I got to play at the stage on Broadway in Nashville. And the way it happened is we had an association that I'm in had a meeting, and they asked me to put together. Everybody knows I'm into music. I mean, I posted everywhere, as you know. But they
Yes.
asked me to put together a band. We opened up. So Blake Shelton has a band that he tours with, and when he's
Mm.
not touring, he's on The Voice or whatever. They
Yeah.
play and for other artists in Nashville. Well, we got to open up for them, and I got to tell you, they were the nicest group of people. They were kind. I got to use their drummers kit. It was just a magical experience. And I was sitting on the throne at the stage in Broadway thinking, how blessed and lucky I am to have to sit in that chair with where some of the greatest artists in the world have sat, and there I was entertaining a crowd in this two-level bar, and I like it was one of the happiest moments. It was right up there with I played a show for my 60th birthday, and we opened up with White Rabbit, which is a great drum song, right? So we open up with the drumming tune, and then we play Pinball Wizard by The Who, and I
Oh,
was
there you go.
literally in tears. The first album I had ever bought was Tommy by The Who. And there I was on a stage with a big screen and videos behind me playing Pinball Wizard. I could have died right there. I was that happy. It was the most, those are incredible moments of musical life. And that's what music can do for people. And whether you are a great star making lots of money, or you're an angry guy or girl who never got far, because remember, there are thousands of people out there making music. And maybe you didn't get the right break, or you're the guy or girl that you thought was going to take you to the next level couldn't. But you're out there making music week after week, month after month, making people happy. And at some level, there's a thing that drives us that creates this incredible. And so I'm going to shout out on your show to all of the cover band and bar bands that are out there bringing joy to people who are getting the same joy when those people are giving, clapping and dancing and singing back with them.
Yes, absolutely. Music is something that hits your soul, and for a lot of people, that's their therapy.
Really, it is. It's funny because my chief of staff is a great keyboard player. He plays in my bands, and I'm lucky to play with him. And we have a thing in Answernet. We call them Tuesdays. And Tuesdays tend to be stressful days. Well, when we play music, it can wipe away Tuesdays just as if they never happened. So it is also a great stress reliever. And for those of you who have young children, it's been proven that music enhances your math skills and your math abilities. So, because music, as many of us musicians know, is nothing but math, and
That's
being able
right.
to build those connections in your brain. That's why I have a friend who is the CEO of an arts organization, and they're really working hard right now for to make sure that the government doesn't shut down funding to the National Endowment of the Arts. So I know that's something that many of us and probably many of your listeners care about, and it's probably something you should keep your eye on, because making sure that we are bringing and keeping the arts alive in America is just so important.
Very, very important. Gary, if people want to learn more about you and Answernet and maybe some of your bands and stuff, where can they find more information?
Well, I'm all over the place. It's Gary Puddles with one D. But to learn about AnswerNet, join us at www.answernet.com. That's ANSWERNET.com. And you can also find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. And more importantly, the bands are Fun Size. And the story behind Fun Size, real fast, is that we have a short our lead singer is short, and she followed a band, and who was the mic was really high, and the guy looks down and goes, "You're short," and she said, "No, I'm Fun Size." And then there's Bucket Band Philly, because there's nothing better that your bucket list thing is everybody should play music in front of people at least once in their lives. So we're on Facebook, Bucket Band Philly, and Fun Size.
That's awesome, Gary. Is there anything that I forgot to mention that you would like to mention before we go today?
Yeah, one thing. Thank you for not only having me on, but for being a client and for being so supportive. You know, a business owner is only as good as the people that they get to support. And the work you're doing, the radio show, it's awesome, Kayden, and I'm honored to be your friend.
Thank you so much. And again, I would like to thank Gary Puddles for taking the time to come on the Kayden Gordon Show today's Best Country Mix. Thank you so much for your time, Gary, and we'd love to have you back on sometime.
Anytime. It'd be my honor.